Thanks, Chris. And I love the tree planting. I told you that. I think I gave you a shout out on LinkedIn. I think that is such a great idea, something that many of us should follow your lead on. Similar types of smart investments and good way to spend the dollars. So congratulations. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we're just glad that, people found it interesting and are excited about it. So
great. I have a goal. I'm getting off topic, but I have a goal in life, and my kids and my wife knows it, to plant 500 trees before I go whatever is next after this life. So I'm working on it, man. So planting trees is really, really something very important to me. So if you all want to send me some gifts instead of tequila, send me some trees.
Will do, and we'll add to the total there. Post this
all
event,
good.
so.
Anyway, thanks, Chris, and thank you, Crowd Comfort, for giving us this opportunity, and for everybody for tuning in. So I'm Michael Beckerman, the CEO of CREtech, and our mission is driving innovation, technology adoption in the built world, mostly through content and conferences. So it's a great pleasure to talk to everybody today and to be joined by these very, very esteemed thought leaders and panelists. So if I could, before I have them introduce themselves, just sort of frame the discussion from some sort of my lens. So I'm a 35-year commercial real estate veteran. It's the only industry I've ever worked in my whole entire life, the last, say, 6 or so on the technology innovation front. And one of the things that fascinates me most about this industry is cycles, like market cycles and how they move and how the industry evolves. That's why I've been focused on technology the last couple of years. And the truth is, the real estate industry doesn't really go through fundamental revolutionary change. It's very evolutionary, right? And it's why it works. So when you think about cycles, it's about pricing or demand or design, but nothing really I haven't seen. I mean, Jim's the expert far more than me. That's really been transformative, maybe on the industrial side with e-commerce. But I think what COVID did is really accelerate this trend of hybrid flex that was already starting. And so for me, the topic of the changes in the nature of work and its impact on the workplace is the most exciting trend I've seen in my long career, because I think it makes the office more important. I think it makes it more in demand. And I think those that invest in technology will be the leaders going forward, and the market will be bifurcated by haves and have-nots. So this conversation, really, I would frame it as a conversation about office as a hospitality and technology trend. And I think for me, that's really disruptive and revolutionary. So anyway, that's kind of how I approach the topic. And I'll now let each of our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Jim? If you could just tell us who you are.
Thanks. Good to see you, Michael. Yeah. Thank you, Crowd Comfort, for inviting me. And it's always good to support innovation in Boston. It's not all about New York City all the time, Michael. So right. But I'm Jim Whalen. I'm the CIO and CTO of Boston Properties. I've been here, 24 years, just driving both our operating platform as a REIT, public REIT, and as well as all the prop tech and technology that we embed in our properties. So.
Patrick, you want to jump in?
You're pointing, but
I know. I'm staring at you. Don't you know it's you I'm staring at?
Yeah, great to be here. I will sort of echo Jim's comments and thank the Crowd Comfort team for the invitation. And of course, Beckerman, always a pleasure to engage in a dialogue around innovation and the asset class. I've been with a service platform that travels under the name of Savills. I started my career as a broker, so I tell people I'm a recovering broker. And in that way, I'm probably one of the more non-traditional CIOs, CTO folks in the industry. But I oversee our technology, innovation, research, and data services functions for the organization. And Savills in North America is hyper-focused on the corporate occupier. That's the DNA of the company that I started with, Studley, that we sold to Savills in 2014. So it's definitely a very interesting time in the asset class. I would also echo your comments, Beckerman. I think innovation in the asset class has been primarily really focused on the financial aspect of sort of the structuring of the asset class. And this is the first sort of transition that we're going through that's really thinking about, how it's being used by the workers and the workforce. So excited to engage in the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Terrific. And I've known this young man for many years, and I'm probably going to butcher his name anyway. So I apologize in advance. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to try. Just introduce yourself.
Yes. Thanks for having me. My name is Michael. Good to see you again, and Brian as well, or Chris as well. Sorry. My name is Thijs van der Burgt. I'm from Amsterdam, born and raised, and currently the managing director of corporate solutions for HQO. And my company was recently acquired by HQO, which was Office App, where I was the co-founder and CEO. And I have a very strong love for products and thinking about where product and technology can change the real estate industry. So very happy to be in this panel, and looking forward to the discussions.
Great. Thanks guys for joining. Jim, let's start with you. You're the landlord. Like, from the landlord perspective, Boston Properties, in my humble opinion, has been on the forefront of change, innovation, technology, as one of the premier REITs in the world, in my opinion. How has sort of these COVID changed your thinking, your investment strategy as it relates to the workplace?
Yeah, Michael. So I'll kind of comment that, obviously we're an office owner and a provider, right? And, there's, when I think about our construct, we provide space that our tenants, our customers build out on their own. They do the design, they build it out, and we really provide utilities that actually go into, they consume when they build out their space. So when you're talking about our assets, like from a technology perspective, I think about it in the common areas. I think about it in amenities, right? We will talk about some of these themes, the amenitization. I mean, some of these were already underway before COVID, and they've all been really accelerated around creating place where you can actually, obviously it's all about talent, right? It's all about acquiring and retaining your talent. And so there's a bunch of themes here that I know we'll elicit and we'll talk through, but fundamentally, we're as you were saying, our customers are in varying stages of figuring this out. I mean, it's really across the board in how people, and I love some of the prior panel's conversation about the tech that our customers are bringing into their space, right? And how they're going to figure out how to work within their space. But as a landlord, is a boundary, a traditional paradigm boundary at the door. So it's about, again, all the other things that we do around to create collaborative space, create amenities, create retail places, to do digital and enablement or digital engagement that we're focused on, that are kind of are enablers beyond that door, separate from what they're doing inside their space. So again, that's kind of how I think about it, because again, I don't own everything. I'm not an education institution. I'm not a hospital. I'm not a corporate, builder like Google with one of their wholly owned buildings that they own everything, right? We're a multi-tenanted office owner fundamentally, and we have to think about that. But and the last thing there is that we do believe that in-office work still has a place. You can't maintain your create corporate culture, can't mentor, you can't really acquire talent without office. So again, it's that process of what that's going to look like, how that's going to be figured out, and it's going to be a journey in my mind, exciting journey over the next couple of years. So
Yeah, that's great, Jim. Thanks for sharing that. Patrick, from the occupier lens, right? And again, I know you're not a broker, but you're the CTO of one of the largest tenant rep, firms in the world. What's changed in your mind in this environment as you approach, what sort of the occupier lens looks like as it relates to technology in the office?
Yeah, I mean, removing the office as an experience from how you run your business, how you drive your business forward is, I mean, that's been a shock to the system, to say the least, right? So I think, to echo Jim's point, I don't know that there's a right or wrong. I think there's a lot of forced adaptation that's happening and experimentation that's happening across our client base, and they're balancing a variety of challenges and trying to see through to where the big opportunities are. I mean, the challenge of taking an ingredient away that you knew was strategically valuable is a challenge unto itself. So how do you replicate some of the experiences, the connections, the social fabric, the community building aspects to your culture when you can't necessarily pull everybody back into a co-located environment with the consistency that you could pre-pandemic? I mean, that's been a huge challenge for everybody. But it's also interesting to think about the reality that it's as bad as it's ever going to be right now. I mean, it's only going to get better from here in terms of the tools that you have, the connected experiences that you can create through digital, and some level of bringing back people to co-located traditional work environments. So I think it's definitely a very challenging, but also a really exciting time for corporate occupiers to reevaluate a lot of assumptions that frankly could never have been challenged before.
That's right.
If this hadn't happened.
Never, it's great. It's a great point. Never challenged before, right? And that's why I was talking about cycles and this tsunami of a driver that's forcing sort of change and acceleration of a lot of these tools and strategies that Jim's talking about as well. Thijs, from Office app, right? You focused on the tenants. Now you're integrated now fully into the HQO platform. This has to have been a boon to your business, right? Because tenant experience now feels like it's top of the occupiers' demands for space.
Correct. Yes. So it's I think to your point, Patrick, it's I think because of that change, there's more and more actual awareness of the value of real-time data and flexible solutions. So as everyone is saying, we don't know yet what's going to happen, how companies are going to adapt. As we started the conversations, it's all about retaining and attracting talent. That's also, I think, one of the largest changes that we've seen in the past years is that collectively talent now has a stronger voice in decisions on what happens in real estate and what happens or what decisions are made from a real estate location perspective. And I think these individual employees are also going to have a much stronger voice in the future, which means that these corporations need to change, they need to adapt. And the only thing in how to actually change to the active needs of your employees is to measure. And with those measurements, have a flexible solution or flexible solutions to be able to adapt to those new demands and iterate on those individual demands, because it will be a journey of testing before you get it right, and then probably you have to start testing new requirements and additions again. So this is going to be an ever evolving process in optimizing your workplace.
Great. Jim, as I was alluding to earlier, my assessment is that I'm old enough to know that these swings, these pendulum swings are never as extreme, right? As the media or others would proclaim them to be. I actually believe we are going to see a complete renaissance of the office space. And I think office will be the driver that companies look at as a tool to recruit, retain, motivate, and inspire, that the office will become more important than ever, right? So walk me through what sort of a day in the life of a tenant at Boston Properties, what would they experience in your space? What are the investments that you've made?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I'll just pick up on three themes, Michael, because, and all of this was present before COVID, but it's not just accelerated. And I talked about one already, the amenity and retail placemaking that just, that requires capital. It requires creativity. I was just out in the suburbs. We have a building out in 140 Kendrick that we're repositioning. We built this amazing amenity base, with creative, and it's. I mean, I want to work there. I want to work there, right? In terms of what we're doing, and it's got so it's that's an example, right? But the others are around sustainability now coupled with healthy buildings, right? So healthy buildings it was there. It's already now accelerated, and I believe it's kind of not exactly married, but they're going to go be hand in hand, because you're going to have to manage both. But this attention to environmental variables, so I'm chairing our IAQ technology working group, and we're trying to move from a testing protocol to an active monitoring protocol, going back to the access to data, real-time data, to really provide a platform centered on operational excellence. And that has just been amplified by COVID, right? That's and then again, a theme that's been throughout the day is this in digital engagement. We have we have initiatives around mobile app deployment, right? And how you get access to your amenities, how you do food ordering. Again, this extension as a landlord into the amenities and retail that you create around your properties for convenience and less friction for the talent that are in our buildings. Apple had the announcement in June around the credentials being in the wallet. I mean, these are all digital plays, and I could riff on the digital enablement I could riff on data sharing frameworks with your customers, which is going to be a journey for this decade. I mean, I look at these things for mutual benefit, and how we, as a landlord, we work with our customers on data and sharing that. So my last comment, I guess, on this is this does all take a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes sponsorship. It takes really block and tackle. I won't say that every building's a snowflake, but every building is a snowflake in many ways. And the ability to really work on this and then to scale it effectively is really kind of what we're centered on. And so again, it's a very exciting, it's an exciting decade ahead in my mind. And this variable that has been thrown in is only accelerating the dynamic of what we're dealing with, right? So,
well, it's exciting to me to hear you talk like this, because I've known you for so long, and we've done so much together, and I think this is the most excited I've seen you.
I'm usually excited, but
I know, but I'm just saying, this is like Jim Whalen 2X, which is a good thing. Patrick, you at Savills North America, you all have invested a lot in tools to sort of service your occupier clients. Can you just kind of walk us through some of those and what the strategy's been?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to be very realistic about what we can be best in the world at. And I think for us, arming our clients and advisory teams with the best technology and data is a key aspect of creating value for them. So Thijs talked about it, Jim kind of mentioned it, but clearly understanding what's working, where your people are, what they're interacting with, how they're interacting with those various different physical assets, and what's compelling in terms of reinvesting or shifting investments across that diverse physical asset portfolio is critical. And I think actually it'll be interesting. Like you talked about pendulum shifts. I think one of the interesting, I guess, vectors to look at when you talk about pendulum shifts, like how likely is it that we're going to have too many, solutions out there. And you can't really scale that. You know, if everything's a custom integration, if every building truly is a snowflake, and our clients, you know, have to do custom integrations across every single building just to get the data that they really need to drive productivity and you know, talent initiatives across their business, is that really a great solution for, you know, large scale corporate occupiers? I don't know. I think there's probably going to be some real standardization there. But when we look at, again, kind of like where we fit in that ecosystem, I think making sure that we have the right partners and really assembling the platform to drive data and technology advantage to advisory teams and corporate occupiers is where we focus.
Thijs, you know, when we had our CREtech event, our return to live events in New York, and your partner and CEO Chase put on a whole day worth of terrific programming. And what was shocking to me is he had customers on the stage showing their data and analytics using the HQO app and where the activity was and where it wasn't, right? And I saw something recently, I think you guys had put out a poll, 55% of respondents said they value rewards, fun events, and volunteer opportunities at their workplace, which I thought was really interesting. I want that too, by the way. I'm in my house. Tell us about where you're seeing the specific demand and engagement within the app and the platform.
A good question. And I think it's, if you look at we did very extensive research a couple of years ago, and one of the biggest results out of that was one of the largest frustrations from people in the office is not feeling in control. There's so many different systems or different activities that you can do on a daily basis, and just not having the comfort that there's a place where you can go to actually be in control of your workday. That is most frustrating for a lot of people. So I always get the question, what is used the most? I am going to answer it. But what I think is really important is actually building a solution where people are in control of their personalized workplace. And maybe also touching on a discussion we had a couple of minutes ago. It's if we're saying, are people actually going back to the office? I think the demand is becoming more and more personalized. If you are an individual that wants to fully work from home, you will look for a company that has a full remote policy in place. And I don't think the number of people who fully want to work from home will be that high. I think it will be between 10-20%. And there's a very large group that wants a hybrid or a full-time version. It's also very cultural driven, where you see the demands of those individual needs. And that also comes down to personal requirements. And so the personal requirements that we see is that they are connected to the individual. From a usage perspective, we see huge uptake from the individual community, which is also personalized on the level where you find interest, whether that's yoga classes, running classes, whether it's coupons or specific updates in the building. All of those individual elements are very popular, especially communication between different tenants or different people in the building. And especially with our corporates and corporate customers, so the occupier customers, those are much more facilities focused. So utilization of space, being able to book a room, add a visitor, add a parking space, reserve banqueting, report an issue in the building, have access controls similar to landlords. All of these elements connected into one easy flow is extremely important. And due to COVID, we have now seen more safety and security elements also added to that mix.
That's great. It's helpful. Great insights. Jim, now we're at the end of 21, right? All the numbers, in terms of office velocity, demand are pointing in the right direction, right? So I think
Week over week increases
week over
in all
week, right?
markets. Yeah.
Yep. And
Yep.
Savills has put out some great research on that, on as well as different submarkets and how they're performing in the demand. And it's there. It's there. And I'm not, those that know me, I'm not a cheerleader. Like I'm not just hyping. I'm looking at the facts and I'm seeing the trends. I'm understanding, where things are going. But from your perspective, like the year ahead or the next 2 years ahead, what are some of the things that you're going to be thinking about and focused on from a sort of a landlord, technology, amenities lens?
Yeah, I mean, well, the major focus for me, I would say is really two areas. One is, I'm trying to solve. I'm going to put my IT hat on and like even just my own workplace. And before COVID, like maybe video was used. We use video for interacting with everyone. It's not just internal, right? It's like it's with every party. So like, how do we enable our our spaces? My workplace. We've been returned to office full time since July, and we're going through this experimentation and figuring it out, and all the so that extends out into our amenity spaces. So I have an initiative right now around we've done all this amenity and we're still continuing to do it. And how do we optimize and rationalize that tech? So that's a more block and tackle, but it's all about this video enablement that is with all parties, not just internal to a company, even in a hybrid mode, right? So that's one theme, and then the other major theme that I've shepherded, not shepherded, but is chairing is this indoor air quality, and we are making a major investment in a core and shell strategy that is significant for the company and is a differentiator in how we think about indoor air and how we arm our teams with tools, as well as move toward how we share data with our customers and extend this, right? So it's really an exciting, and to me, having been on this journey now for a year. And we're in the process building this organizational capability and capacity around this. That's equally important in any of these journeys that you go on, and that's another thing I'm just excited about. So
yeah, and also I'd be remiss if I didn't. Kudos to you, Ben Myers, Brian Coop, for all the leadership on climate. It's been extraordinary.
There we go, saving electricity.
And the planet just went dark. Perfectly timed. But anyway, the Boston Properties leadership on climate, health, healthier, safer work environments has been extraordinary. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. Patrick, what are you thinking about for what's next? What's got your focus over the next year ahead?
Yeah, so I mean, I could pile on similar themes, definitely relevant for corporate occupiers. I think the reality in that if you're in the business of acquiring and retaining talent, you need to align with what Thijs was saying, in that the concept that talent is going to just want to perform work in the way that they performed work, in the style in which they perform work pre-pandemic, I think it's just, there's no scenario where that's going to be the case. I think the reality is going to be that talent's going to value flexibility. They're going to value the sort of autonomous personalization aspects of what they can do today, and they're going to expect that from top tier employers. So if you sort of back up to, okay, now you're a corporate occupier, you're in the business of acquiring, retaining talent. I mean, you're going to have to plan for a very different composition of physical assets, where your talent is going to be performing work over the next few years. So if you do want to have a seamless experience for talent across that physical asset base, I think it's going to require a very different program in terms of the technologies that you're going to be working with, and how you're going to plug into the respective data sets to really understand whether or not you're successfully implementing what your thesis was at the beginning of that journey. So I think that's definitely where my head is on the corporate occupier side. I think going back to talent's the North Star, talent's going to desire flexibility, and that's going to result in a more complex composition of physical assets and systems that we need to plan for.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough that your comment about, I was fortunate with my friend Simon Davis to do a keynote for a CoreNet chapter a couple months ago, and it was all about how the nature of work has so fundamentally changed. And it's really the first time since probably, decades since the 20s, where the way that companies had their employees work, the systems, the environment really hasn't changed that much. But I think today it's all being reevaluated. And again, that's where I think the industry emerges, companies like Boston Properties, Savills, and HQO, such leadership positions that are embracing all of these sort of new ethos. And so, Thijs, from your perspective, what's next for you? What are you working on without giving too much of the playbook? I know what's got your attention, your focus for the year ahead?
So we have a very strong focus on the experience side. So we want to provide the best experience possible as a human working. And from a technology perspective, I think it's going to be more and more interconnected data. So we currently have over 70 integrated systems on our platform. What we are currently providing is analysis of all of these data points coming together and cross-referencing and crossing all of those data points. But what we also see is that at this point in time, this technology is fairly new for property managers, for facility managers, workplace managers. And it's difficult to adjust your normal way of work to now adding data analytics to the mix to actually, based on these data points, adjust your operations. And so what we are seeing is that there's more and more demand for more prescriptive and predictive data points, where we can actually analyze and give conclusions out of these data points for them, so they can more autonomously start to optimize space and utilize space more efficiently. So I think that's where, from a technology and a data perspective, that will go to. That is, as Jim said, a lot of work. And that was and that is something that, but it is a requirement for this market to actually change significantly, and also enable property and facility managers to actually change.
And I do think that's just to reinforce your point. I mean, I do think this decade, if you look at it, is going to be just this decade of data for this industry, and how you build organizational depth and bench around your ability to consume it, make insights, gain insights, make changes, adapt. And so I just, it's an amazing, just the capabilities and the enablement by the cloud and the tool sets and are just fundamental enablers of what's going to impact already impacting our sector, and it's going to drive it further change. So
yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see the level of personalization and customization come to the physical piece of the experience, right? It's like my screen does it, but the asset doesn't really marry up with the screen experience. And I think it's a really interesting place to play right now.
What, Jim, you were talking about video and how that's added this whole new sort of complexity to what you're trying to figure out for the experience for both Boston Properties internally, as well as for your tenants and your customers. Let's just go, out there. What might be some of the themes that are really, really impactful that we're not talking about yet? Like what could be lurking? I mean, is it the metaverse, where we're going to have to, like you said, incorporate all of this virtual reality?
Right.
Well, I guess like a big theme that we're not talking about.
So I'll pick one real quick, Michael. And I've been focused on data, and this journey around IAQ has definitely opened up I've been spending way too much time with my engineering talent disciplines in the company on this journey. And one of the things is really this, we've talked about commissioning, self-commissioning, self-tuning buildings. And, that what has really kind of come to the foray for me is like this triangle of comfort, energy consumption, and now ventilation filtration, right? The air quality. And we've spent the last decade focused on optimizing energy. And now we've got this amplification of attention on ventilation and air quality. And this thing is like a dynamic. This is like a dynamic, triangle. So what you have more now importance around what's your occupancy? What does outside conditions look like, right? And this is an art form right now. This is not science-based in our buildings, right? So what I've been really focused on and just some of the insights is like this journey that we're going to be on. And are we going to, at the end of this decade, are we really truly going to reach a point of this nirvana of having self-tuning, commissioning buildings? And I think that's a journey that the data enablement is going to, with challenges around talent who are making these judgments every day. So that's one of the outcomes of just kind of where my head is these days. And it has related to data. It's related to how we operate our buildings. So anyway, that's my takeaway.
No, that's great. That's great. Patrick, what's out there? What's lurking? What could be a really, and again, very practical or extremely disruptive force trend? We talk about cycles in the beginning. What aren't we talking about that we should be thinking about, perhaps?
Well, I do. I mean, I'll give you like a sort of practical one, which is I think that, we will see a pullback in demand. And as we see that pullback in demand, we're going to see increased levels of inventory across the major marketplaces. And the upside of that is you're going to see like no other moment in time in the commercial asset class, you're going to see a reinvestment to really reposition, relet, and reoccupy that inventory in a much more digital way. So I think that's really exciting. It's going to probably folks are going to incur some pain along the way, and there's going to be winners and losers in respective markets. But that's a pretty exciting dynamic. I don't think there's, certainly in my career, there's not been a time like that before. That's really focused on the experience and kind of the interaction of the employee with the asset. And then, I'll sort of put out there, why is it that, why can't I work wherever I want to work, whenever I want to work, however I want to work? I mean, why isn't every asset available to me as an option to get my team together and have an experience in beautiful places that, bring us a different aesthetic and air quality and institutional connection point, from a high-speed data perspective than versus my home. Why is it so limited in the opportunity set that I have to go to this building or that building based on who my company picks? I don't know. I think the consumer trend of wanting full personalization, full customization is going to be interesting how that plays out across the marketplace.
I think Patrick is advocating for working in the metaverse, is what I'm hearing. I think
I don't like I'm not totally sold on the metaverse. I don't know that I want to have virtual me talk to virtual you. I like the real experience. I just why can't we have it wherever we want it?
Well, I think it's really an interesting conversation, right, with all your different perspectives, because you're talking about personalization. Thijs is talking about personalization, and Jim's talking about snowflakes and how hard it is to operate each of these snowflakes. And I think that's probably right, Jim. That's the tension of,
I do come back to your point, Patrick. I do think companies and organizations that like Fortune 1000 companies do curate their space to reinforce their culture and their talent. And, so they're just, it's not like creating just a commodity. It's like there's space has an impact on your company's culture, and we've seen that across many of the people. I mean, what Google does with their space versus with Microsoft is fundamentally different to enable their talent. So it just, again, I'm I appreciate it because I love working wherever I go and I want to be connected and enable that. But there's also some.
I mean, to counterpoint that, I should be able to work in any Boston Properties building whenever I want, however I want. So, I mean, like there's a consumer need there. I think that there's not quite a product that matches. I mean, maybe WeWork was kind of flirting with it, but it's not really there yet. So I think it's an interesting space.
Yeah. Thijs, from your perspective, you're the techie. What's out there that's lurking that could really have a profound impact on this conversation next year?
I think the overall data piece is going to change this entire industry. But I think I would like to, I think more interesting is maybe the personalization bit. And I think what's really interesting is that the past 20, 30 years, our lives have completely changed due to technology, specifically our consumer lives. And then the moment that you enter an office building, you are sent back in time for 30 years, right? So I think from a talent perspective, there is a huge expectation that this technology matches your consumer life, which is currently not happening. And the fun thing is that we are going to have all this work to make sure that we get on par. And then the response of the individual talent is going to be exactly that is what I was expecting, and not say, wow, or this is amazing, but they are simply expecting this to be on par with their consumer experience.
I love that.
So I think when we are, we will be seeing, I think, a less physical connection with technology and a more automation of processes. And therefore, because of the technology and the data analytics who are optimizing a space, or the people who are working, such as facility and property managers, they are constantly improving a space to get it on par to what they would expect on a consumer life. And there's a lot to catch up with, and consumer technology is also going at a very fast pace. So I cheer everyone who's working also on the corporate side and to adopt technology and to start working with it, because it's beautiful.
Well, this was a beautiful conversation for me, at least. And for those that are listening, I typically don't like to script anything that I'm too involved in, because I think it makes for a more interesting conversation. But it actually went exactly according to the script I had in my head, which was I started out talking about the sort of the hospitality theme within CRE, within the office sector. And what you all talked about is sort of the consumerization of the office experience, right? It's what consumers want in their lives, right? And it's what I think the tenant wants and the employee wants in their experience. And I think you're all great examples of the leadership in the marketplace of, why I'm so optimistic about the future of office and technology is because of, you, Thijs, Jim, and Patrick. And so this was really great. I hope the audience liked it. Chris, how we doing?
I think you guys are doing great. Overall, I think you answered a lot of the audience's questions. So I don't think we have any more questions there, but I really appreciated the conversation. I know I learned a lot, and there's some really interesting things happening. I think that was the big takeaway from all the sessions is there's a lot of interesting things happening. The question is kind of where folks are heading, and it's definitely a more consumerized experience, I think, in where we work. So that's great.
Terrific. Well, thanks for hosting us again, Chris and Crowd Comfort team. And keep planting trees, man. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you guys. And just for the audience members that are still on, just know that we will be sending the recordings Friday to all the different sessions, including this one. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll also be in contact with you on our tree planting and send those certificates out. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate everybody that participated today.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Patrick. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Keith. Really great stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.